You think connection makes you human? It's actually what makes you controllable. Let me show you what happens when you enter God mode. Complete detachment from needing anyone's approval, love, or validation. Here's what nobody tells you. Your empathy is a weapon they use against you. Your need to belong, a leash. Your moral code, a prison you built with your own hands. Machiavelli understood something most people never will. The world isn't governed by fairness. It's governed by force wrapped in velvet. And while you're out here trying to be good, someone else is taking what's yours. You've been programmed. From childhood, they taught you to care what strangers think, to seek approval, to play nice, to share, to collaborate. These aren't virtues, they're compliance mechanisms. The truth? Human attachment is a vulnerability. Every emotional bond is a lever someone can pull. Every person you need is a hostage fortune can take. And you're walking around with your weaknesses on display, wondering why predators keep circling. This isn't depression. This isn't nihilism. This is God mode. Complete psychological detachment, the most dangerous skill you'll ever learn. What you call connection is often just covert contracts and emotional manipulation dressed as love. Detachment isn't isolation, it's sovereignty. And today, I'm going to show you exactly what happens when you enter God mode and step off the chessboard entirely. Let me show you what happens when you enter God mode. Complete detachment from needing anyone's approval, love, or validation. Take Steve Jobs, 1985. Apple's board kicked him out of his own company, the company he built from his garage. Most people would have been destroyed. Most people would have begged, compromised, apologized. Jobs, he walked away. Zero attachment to their validation. 11 years later, Apple was dying, and they came crawling back. He returned, not as a supplicant, but as a king, on his terms, his vision, his rules. Why? Because he'd entered God mode. He needed nothing from them, and that made him ungovernable. That made him irreplaceable. That's what detachment creates. Not bitterness, not loneliness, strategic invincibility. Stay with me because I'm about to show you exactly how this works, and what you become when you need nothing from anyone. Your brain is wired for submission. Your limbic system, the ancient mammalian brain, craves pack inclusion more than food, more than sex, more than survival itself. Think about that. Your neurochemistry rewards conformity with dopamine hits. Every like, every nod of approval, every sign that you belong. Your brain treats it like a drug. And like any drug, you'll do increasingly degrading things to get your next hit. Machiavelli wrote, "Men are so simple and so subject to present necessities that he who seeks to deceive will always find someone who will allow himself to be deceived." Why? Because their need to belong overrides their logic every single time. Look at corporate culture. Watch how people dress identically, speak identically, laugh at the boss's terrible jokes, parrot company values they don't believe in. Why? Neurological addiction to belonging. They've traded authenticity for acceptance, identity for inclusion. They know they're playing a role, but their brain chemistry won't let them stop. You're doing the same thing, different context, same cage. The tactical breakdown. Your attachment to human validation creates predictable behavior patterns. Predictable means exploitable. Exploitable means controlled. Here's the tactical truth. The moment someone knows what you need from them, they own that part of you. You need their approval. They'll ration it to modify your behavior. You need their love. They'll withdraw it to punish dissent. You need their acceptance. They'll set the terms of who you're allowed to be. This is livestock management disguised as community. Action commands. Command 1. Identify every person whose opinion affects your decisions. Write them down. This is your vulnerability map. Command 2. For the next 7 days, make one decision daily that contradicts someone's expectations of you. Feel the discomfort. That's your addiction to approval dying. Command 3. Stop explaining yourself. Watch how people react when you simply state your choice without justification. Their confusion is your first taste of freedom. Ask yourself this question. If everyone you knew disappeared tomorrow, what would you do differently? That gap between your current life and that answer. That's the size of your prison. The second principle reveals why the wolves always win. Stay with me. In any negotiation, any relationship, any power dynamic, whoever needs it less controls it completely. This is game theory at its most brutal. Detachment creates information asymmetry. You study them while they can't read you. You see their desperation while revealing none of your own. It's like playing poker when only you can see the cards. The attached person telegraphs everything. Their fear, their desire, their breaking points. They're an open book written in panic and need. The detached person, a locked vault. Machiavelli's observation. Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are. Translation. Emotional opacity is armor. Mystery is power. When they can't predict you, they can't manipulate you. Think of social interactions as information warfare. Every emotion you show is intelligence you've leaked. Every need you express is ammunition you've handed the enemy. 2016 Elon Musk. Tesla burning through cash. Production hell. Media calling for his head. Investors demanding he step down as CEO. Wall Street betting against him with billions in short positions. Everyone expected panic, apologies, compromise, board meetings where he'd beg for mercy. Instead, Musk tweeted jokes about bankruptcy, slept on the factory floor, gave zero indication he cared about their opinions, complete information opacity, strategic indifference to their pressure. The shorts lost billions. Why? Because they couldn't read him. They bet on predictable human behavior, fear, capitulation, self-preservation. They got God mode instead. His detachment from their judgment created space to execute his vision. Their attachment to being right created financial ruin. The fox and the henhouse. Here's the metaphor. Foxes don't love hens. They study them, learn their patterns, exploit their predictability. The hen's attachment to the flock? That's what gets them killed. They're too busy caring what other hens think to notice the predator. You've been the hen. I'm teaching you to be the fox. Actionable tactics. Tactic 1. In your next conflict, deploy strategic silence. Don't defend. Don't explain. Just watch. Observe how they fill the void with projections and panic. Tactic 2. Practice delayed emotional response. Someone tries to trigger you? Count to 3. Feel the impulse. Choose not to react. This 3-second gap is where sovereignty lives. Tactic 3. Reverse the information flow. Ask questions, lots of them. Make them reveal while you remain opaque. Every answer they give is leverage you've gained. Count to 3 right now. Feel the space between stimulus and response. In that space, you're free. Outside it, you're a puppet. The third principle exposes the true seat of power. You're not ready for this. The most powerful person in any room isn't the one demanding respect. It's the one who doesn't need it. This is shadow integration at the strategic level. While others fight for the visible throne, for titles, recognition, public validation, the Shadow King operates from psychological independence. They pull strings without touching them. Here's the paradox. The moment you need to prove you're powerful, you've already lost. Real power whispers. Insecurity screams. Machiavelli's dark truth. It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both. But here's what most miss. It's even better to be irrelevant to their emotions entirely. Fear means they're watching. Love means they're attached. Indifference means you exist in a different ecosystem. You're not even playing their game. The Shadow King doesn't need the crowd's approval because the Shadow King has decoupled self-worth from external metrics. They've built an internal validation system that runs independent of social feedback loops. Tom Ford, fashion designer, built Gucci into $1 billion empire in the 90s. Then the corporate board tried to control him, dilute his vision, force compromises. Ford walked away, launched his own brand. No investors, no board, no bosses, complete creative sovereignty. He didn't fight for the throne at Gucci. He built his own kingdom where he answered to nobody. That's Shadow King energy. Most people fight over seats at someone else's table. Shadow Kings build their own table. Different game entirely. The surgical approach. Think of traditional power as loud and fragile. It requires constant maintenance, constant performance, constant fear management. It's exhausting. Detached power is self-sustaining. It doesn't need feeding. It doesn't require witnesses. It exists whether acknowledged or not. You become weather, not a person. Weather doesn't care about your opinion of it. Weather doesn't compromise. Weather doesn't explain itself. It simply is, and you adapt or you suffer. Implementation Protocol. Protocol 1. Eliminate all status-seeking behavior for 30 days. No humble bragging, no achievement posting, no subtle dominance displays. Starve your ego and watch what survives. That's your real self. Protocol 2. Build competence nobody sees. Learn a skill you'll never mention. Get exceptionally good at something purely for its own sake. This rewires your reward system away from social validation. Protocol 3. Practice the power of absence. Don't show up to things expecting you. Watch how your perceived value increases when you're not desperately available. Here's the test. Can you be extraordinary in private? Can you win without an audience? If you need witnesses for your victories, you're still in the cage. The fourth principle separates monks from sociopaths. This distinction saves lives. This is critical. Listen carefully. Strategic detachment is a precision tool. You choose when to engage, when to withdraw, who deserves access. It's conscious, deliberate, reversible. Pathological isolation is a wound that's metastasized into identity. It's fear masquerading as philosophy. It's avoidance disguised as strategy, and it will destroy you. The diagnostic. Strategic operators maintain optionality. They can connect deeply when it serves them. They choose solitude from a position of abundance, not scarcity. The pathologically detached, they're running from pain, from rejection, from the risk of being known. They've confused withdrawal with strength. Machiavelli's warning. Men ought either to be well treated or crushed, because they can avenge themselves of lighter injuries, of more serious ones they cannot. Applied here, either engage fully with calculated risk or disengage completely. Half measures. Passive-aggressive distance, emotional unavailability, chronic guardedness. These are the injuries people can avenge. They create enemies without creating safety. The cautionary tale. Howard Hughes, billionaire, genius, aviation pioneer, film producer, absolute titan of industry in the 1930s and 40s. Then he crossed from strategic to pathological, isolated himself completely. Obsessive-compulsive disorders took over. By the end, he lived in sealed hotel rooms, wouldn't let anyone touch him, died alone, paranoid, broken. He had all the power and none of the humanity. That's the warning. Detachment without purpose becomes pathology. Sovereignty without connection becomes prison. Different bars, same cage. The wolf pack principle. Even apex predators understand coalition. Lone wolves die young. But notice, wolves choose their pack. They don't join every pack. They don't trust every wolf. Strategic detachment means selective attachment. You're not disconnecting from humanity. You're upgrading your criteria for connection. Quality over quantity isn't a cliché. It's survival mathematics. Corrective actions. Action 1. Audit your relationships. Who energizes you? Who depletes you? Who do you keep around out of fear rather than value? Cut the dead weight. Not cruelly, strategically. Action 2. Practice intentional vulnerability with one person who's earned it. Test whether you can still connect when you choose to. If you can't, you've crossed from strategic to pathological. Seek help. Action 3. Create clear boundaries, not walls. Boundaries have gates. Walls don't. Gates mean you control access. Walls mean fear controls you. Ask yourself, am I choosing independence or am I fleeing dependence? The first is power. The second is prison. The fifth principle builds the fortress. Your sovereignty depends on this. Build an economy that doesn't need their currency. Your self-worth is currently pegged to external markets, their approval, their recognition, their love. And like any economy dependent on foreign currency, you're vulnerable to market crashes. Here's the revolution. Build an internal economy, a validation system that generates its own value independent of external input. Most people outsource their sense of self. They check the mirror of other people's faces to see if they exist. If nobody's looking, they panic. They literally don't know who they are without an audience. This is spiritual poverty. The Machiavellian foundation. The lion cannot protect himself from traps, and the fox cannot defend himself from wolves. One must therefore be a fox to recognize traps, and a lion to frighten wolves. Translation. You need both external awareness and internal fortitude. The fox studies the environment. The lion trusts his own strength. Most people are neither. They're domesticated animals looking to their owner for food. Nikola Tesla died broke, alone, in a hotel room with pigeons as his only companions. The world had dismissed him, mocked him, stolen his inventions, left him penniless. But here's what matters. He died knowing he'd changed the world. Alternating current, wireless transmission, radio, X-rays, robotics, the foundations of the modern world. His internal validation system, his certainty about his work's value, sustained him when the external world gave him nothing. That's internal economy at its most extreme. I'm not saying die alone. I'm saying his self-worth didn't require their recognition. That's the principle. The construction process. Internal validation means you've defined your own metrics. You know what excellence looks like according to your standards, not theirs. You've created personal benchmarks that exist regardless of social feedback. This isn't delusion. You don't tell yourself you're great when you're mediocre. That's narcissism. You build real competence, then tie your self-worth to your private knowledge of that competence, not public recognition of it. The master craftsman knows when his work is exceptional. He doesn't need customers to tell him. Their purchases are nice, but his identity isn't contingent on their approval. Construction commands. Command 1. Define your private standards. What does excellence look like in the 5 areas you care about most? Write specific, measurable criteria. These are your metrics now, not social validation. Command 2. Create a daily practice that nobody sees. Meditation, training, study, creation. Something that deposits value into your internal bank account with zero external reward. Command 3. Stop performing. When you catch yourself doing something for recognition rather than results, stop immediately. Redirect that energy. This is how you starve the external validation addiction. The test. Would you still do your work if nobody ever knew? If you'd achieved total anonymity, same skills, zero credit, would you continue? If not, you're not building. You're performing, and performers are slaves to their audience. The 6th principle gives you back your weapons. Pay attention. Here's where it gets interesting. We're not eliminating attachment, we're engineering it. Once you've detached from needing everyone, you can strategically attach to the few who matter. But now it's different. Now it's chosen. Now it's conscious. Now it's tactical. Think of emotional connection as ammunition. Before, you were firing wildly in all directions, giving everyone access, getting devastated when anyone left. You were a machine gun spraying bullets everywhere. Now, you're a sniper. One shot, one target, devastating precision. The Machiavellian calibration. Never attempt to win by force what can be won by deception. Applied. Never use emotional distance when strategic connection serves you better. The master knows when to bond and when to break. The amateur is stuck in one mode. Cognitive flexibility is power. Rigidity is weakness. The person who can only detach is as trapped as the person who can only attach. The strategic relationship, Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger. 60-year partnership built Berkshire Hathaway into hundreds of billions. But watch how they operate. Complete intellectual honesty. They challenge each other brutally, disagree publicly, call out each other's mistakes. Zero emotional neediness. Neither needs the other's validation. Neither requires the other's approval. They're attached through mutual respect and aligned values, not dependency. That's selective attachment. Full commitment. Zero neediness. When Munger died in 2023, Buffett didn't fall apart. He honored him and continued, because the attachment was strategic, not pathological. The surgeon's mindset. Surgeons care deeply about their patients during surgery. Total focus, complete commitment, lives literally depend on their precision. Then the surgery ends. They go home. They don't take the patient with them. This is selective attachment. Full presence during engagement. Clean separation after. No residue, no contamination, no loss of self. You can love someone without needing them. You can commit without becoming dependent. You can invest without mortgaging your identity. Deployment tactics. Tactic 1. Practice compartmentalization. Create mental containers for different relationships. Keep them separate. When you're present with someone, be fully there. When you leave, close that container. Don't let one relationship bleed into another. Tactic 2. Maintain parallel sources of fulfillment. Never let one person, job, or community become your single point of failure. Diversify your emotional portfolio. This isn't hedging, it's basic risk management. Tactic 3. Deploy vulnerability strategically. Choose moments to reveal yourself based on whether it serves connection or just feeds their curiosity. Mystery builds value. Oversharing creates contempt. Here's the uncomfortable truth. You can care about someone deeply and still be willing to walk away the second they become toxic. This isn't cold. This is sacred boundaries. You're protecting the part of you that makes love possible in the first place. The 7th principle is why you're really here. This changes everything. This is the end state, the final evolution, and it's terrifying. When you truly need nothing from anyone, not their approval, not their love, not their validation, not their presence, you become functionally ungovernable. You can't be threatened because you've already accepted worst-case scenarios. You can't be bribed because external rewards don't move you. You can't be manipulated because their tactics require leverage they don't have. You've entered God mode, the ultimate Machiavellian truth. Men judge generally more by the eye than by the hand, for everyone can see but few can feel. Here's what he meant. Everyone will judge your detachment as cold, as broken, as wrong. They'll pathologize your freedom because your freedom threatens their prison. Let them. Their judgment is irrelevant. You've exited the validation economy entirely. Their currency doesn't spend in your territory. God mode in action. Keanu Reeves. Peak fame. Multiple franchises. Hollywood royalty. Could demand anything. Could act like every other celebrity. Entitled, validation-seeking, status-obsessed. Instead, takes public transportation, gives away millions to crew members, lives modestly, refuses to engage with celebrity culture, completely detached from the need for fame's validation. The result? He's one of the most beloved figures in entertainment, not because he seeks love, because he doesn't need it. His detachment from the game makes him magnetic. That's God mode, not sociopathy, not coldness, strategic sovereignty that paradoxically creates genuine connection. The paradox. Nobody tells you. Here's what happens that nobody expects. When you genuinely need nothing from people, they start offering everything. Your indifference becomes magnetic. Your self-sufficiency becomes attractive. Your boundaries become irresistible. Why? Because you're no longer playing the game they know. You're not competing. You're not performing. You're not seeking. You simply exist, fully formed, requiring nothing. And in a world of desperate neediness, sovereignty is exotic. The dark truth about freedom. But let me be absolutely clear. This path is lonely before it's liberating. The transition period between abandoning external validation and building internal systems, that's the valley of shadow. That's where most people break and run back to the cage. You will lose people. Friends will call you distant. Partners will call you unavailable. Family will call you selfish. They're not wrong from their perspective. You're withdrawing from the covert contracts that kept the relationships functioning. Let them go. Anyone who needs you to stay small, to stay connected, wasn't worthy of connection in the first place. The 3 final protocols. Protocol 1. Accept that this makes you different, not better. Detachment isn't moral superiority, it's strategic positioning. Don't become the thing you're trying to escape. Don't seek validation for your non-validation seeking. Protocol 2. Build something meaningful with your freedom. Detachment without purpose becomes nihilism. Use your sovereignty to create, build, serve, craft. Otherwise, you're just a well-adjusted sociopath. Protocol 3. Remain open to evolution. The master knows when to attach and when to detach. Stay fluid. Stay adaptive. The moment you crystallize into identity, I am the detached one, you've just created a new cage. Entering God mode. You become weather. Unavoidable, indifferent, powerful, present but uncontrollable, beneficial but unmanipulatable. You become the person who can walk into any room and leave it just as easily, who can love without clinging, who can commit without disappearing, who can be present without being possessed. You enter God mode, not free from humans, free from needing them to complete you, free from requiring their permission to exist, free from the cage of approval. So let's bring this home. You started this video trapped in attachment, bleeding power through 1,000 tiny dependencies, your value outsourced to their opinions. your identity contingent on their acceptance. Now you have the activation codes for God mode. 7 principles, 7 weapons, 7 steps to complete detachment. You understand the neurological prison of belonging and how to escape it. You've learned information asymmetry and why the person who cares less always wins. You know the Shadow King principle? Real power doesn't need witnesses. You can distinguish strategic isolation from pathological withdrawal. You've built internal validation systems that nobody can corrupt. You've learned to deploy selective attachment as a precision instrument. And you've entered God mode. Complete sovereignty. But here's what matters. Information without implementation is just entertainment. You can know all of this and still be enslaved tomorrow if you don't act. The cost of inaction. Let me paint you a picture of your future if you ignore this. 5 years from now, you're still explaining yourself to people who don't deserve explanations. Still seeking approval from those who use your need as a weapon. Still tolerating disrespect because you're afraid of loneliness. Still molding yourself into shapes that fit other people's boxes. That future is death by 1,000 compromises. Or you start today. You make the first decision that contradicts someone's expectations. You practice the first 3-second pause between trigger and reaction. You audit the first relationship. You define the first internal standard. And slowly, like a snake shedding dead skin, you enter God mode. Someone sovereign, someone free. The choice. Nobody's coming to save you. No guru, no system, no perfect person who'll love you into wholeness. This is the work only you can do. Detachment isn't the goal. God-made is. Sovereignty is. The ability to choose connection from abundance rather than desperation, that's the goal. Machiavelli didn't write The Prince to be nice. He wrote it to be true. The world operates on power, not fairness. And power without attachment to outcome is the ultimate power. You can be good and strategic, ethical and detached, loving and sovereign, but you have to choose it. Every day, every interaction, every moment someone tries to colonize your sense of self, you have to choose God mode. If this activated something in you, if you're ready to enter God mode, hit subscribe. This channel is dedicated to the uncomfortable truths that set you free. The dark psychology, the Machiavellian strategies, the brutal self-honesty that most people avoid their entire lives. More importantly, take action today. Choose one protocol, implement one tactic, make one decision from sovereignty rather than fear. And when you do, when you feel that first hit of genuine freedom, when you've successfully entered God mode, come back to this video and leave one word in the comments, God mode. That's it, just that word. It's a signal to yourself and everyone here that you've activated, that you've chosen power over comfort, sovereignty over belonging. Write God mode in the comments right now. And remember, the cage door was never locked. You've been free to leave this entire time. You just needed the activation codes. Now you have them. Now enter God mode.